Amber and Jason drove in silence as the sun dipped below the jagged tree line, casting long, claw-like shadows across the narrow dirt road. The GPS had lost signal miles ago, and the dense forest thickened with every turn. The only sounds were the crunch of gravel under tires and the occasional screech of unseen birds. Amber stared out the window, unease growing in her stomach like a slow storm. Jason, trying to keep the mood light, hummed along to a song that had long since ended. When the cabin finally came into view, old, weather-worn, and veiled in fog, it felt less like a getaway and more like a warning. The Stillwater Lake cabin stood at the edge of a black, glassy lake that didn't ripple, not even with the evening breeze. Trees pressed in around it like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches reaching toward the sky in twisted agony. The cabin's roof sagged slightly, its wooden siding faded and chipped from decades of neglect. A porch swing creaked slowly back and forth, though no wind moved it. Above the door, an upside-down horseshoe hung rusted and crooked. Jason chuckled nervously. "It's just old," he said, "rustic charm." But Amber felt something watching, waiting, from beyond the tree line. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of damp wood and something sweeter. Decay tinged with lavender. Dust clung to every surface, disturbed only by the vague outline of a handprint on the kitchen counter. An old stone fireplace sat cold and crumbling, with ashes that looked far too fresh for a place left unused. Cobwebs threaded through the rafters, and a single light bulb flickered in the center of the room. In the far corner, a full-length mirror loomed, shrouded in yellowing lace. Amber stared at it uneasily, her reflection a dim outline behind the fabric. It almost seemed off. Jason clapped his hands and declared it perfect, setting their bags on the creaky floor. "No distractions," he said. "Just us." He pulled Amber close and kissed her forehead, but she barely smiled. Her eyes drifted back to the mirror, which seemed taller now, more present. She felt an involuntary chill crawl up her spine, despite the warmth of Jason's embrace. The shadows in the cabin stretched unnaturally long, even with the sun still low. Every floorboard groaned under their feet like a warning whispered in wood. The cabin wasn't abandoned. It had been waiting for them, or someone like them. As they unpacked, Amber noticed strange details that didn't make sense. A framed photo on the mantel showed a bride and groom she didn't recognize, but the woman looked eerily similar to her. The wedding dress in the photo looked older than anything modern, laced and high-necked, soaked in sepia age. The clock above the kitchen sink was stuck at 11:11, and even when she wound it, the hands refused to move. Jason laughed off her concerns, but the silence between the walls spoke louder than his voice. That night, as darkness swallowed the lake and trees alike, the cabin exhaled, like it had finally been fed. Amber bolted upright in bed, her breath caught in her throat. The room was pitch black, except for the faint glow of the moon peeking through the torn curtains. She had heard something, or rather, felt something, brush against her mind like a whisper underwater. Jason lay beside her, unmoving. Her eyes were drawn toward the corner of the room where the mirror stood. The lace covering was gone. The mirror, now fully exposed, pulsed faintly as though lit from within. Amber blinked, her breath frosting in the cold air. Realizing the room had turned frigid despite the thick summer heat outside. Something wasn't right with her reflection. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood slowly, careful not to make a sound. Each step toward the mirror felt like trudging through invisible mud. The wooden floor groaned louder with every movement, as if protesting her approach. When she was just a few feet away, she froze. Her reflection didn't mimic her hesitation. It smiled. Amber's own lips remained still. She staggered back, but the grin in the glass only grew wider. revealing teeth far too sharp. Behind the reflection, the faint silhouette of a woman appeared. Soaked, skeletal, her eyes two voids of ink. Amber screamed and fell backward, her hands scraping the floor. Jason jerked awake, rushing to her side, but the mirror was once again covered in lace, as if it had never been touched. "You had a nightmare," Jason whispered, pulling her into his arms. "It's just the dark playing tricks." Amber wanted to believe him, but the chill still clung to her skin, and she could swear she heard something breathing inside the glass. Her nightgown, which had been dry when she fell asleep, was now cold and damp, sticking to her back like she'd fallen into the lake itself. Unable to shake the dread, Amber refused to sleep. Jason drifted off easily, but Amber kept her eyes locked on the mirror through the candle's flickering light. The shadows danced across the fabric covering, but now she was sure the lace moved slightly on its own. As if something behind it paced slowly, awaiting for her to look again. She counted every breath she took, praying they weren't being matched. Hours passed. At exactly 3:33 a.m., a soft, wet tapping came from the mirror's surface, as though fingernails were gently scraping from the inside. Amber didn't move. She didn't sleep and cracked. The next morning arrived shrouded in gray mist, seeping through every window pane like living presence. Jason was gone, his side of the bed cold and untouched, as if he'd never been there at all. Amber called his name, her voice sounding oddly muffled in the still cabin. She searched each room with growing panic until her foot caught on a loose floorboard in the hallway. The kneeling down, she pried it open and discovered a small, rotting trunk buried beneath the planks. A strange scent wafted from it, faded perfume and mildew. Her fingers trembled as she unlatched the rusted clasp and slowly opened it to reveal what lay inside. Inside the trunk rested a folded wedding dress, yellowed and stiff with age. Its lace trim was brittle, and the hem still damp, though no water had touched it. The fabric clung to her skin like it recognized her. Beneath the dress was a worn, leather-bound journal, sealed with a rusted clasp. She struggled to open it until the metal finally snapped, and she flipped to the first page. The handwriting was elegant but frantic. It belonged to Eliza Marrow, a woman who'd stayed here nearly a century ago on her honeymoon. The first entries were sweet, hopeful, but then came rage. Eliza's words quickly unraveled into bitterness and obsession. Her husband had betrayed her. Details were vague, but Eliza spoke of voices in the lake, of whispers promising vengeance. She wrote about cold hands touching her shoulders while she slept, and dreams that weren't dreams at all. Her final entries were scrawled in smeared inker. "He lies. He drowns. They all drown. I am the lake now." Amber turned the page and froze. The next handwriting was different, messier, masculine. It was Jason's. The ink fresh. "I saw her. She knows I lied. I never should have brought her here. I can't leave. Please forgive me." Amber dropped the journal, heart hammering. The cabin was no longer just an old relic. It was a trap. The photographs on the walls suddenly made more sense. Faces faded, but all brides looked eerily familiar. She tore the wedding dress away from her body and fled into the main room, calling Jason's name once more, her voice cracking. But the only sound that answered her came from the mirror, a low hum growing louder. The air turned thick and icy. She turned back toward the journal still lying open and noticed a new entry being written, the ink spelling out, "She belongs here now." Thunder cracked through the sky as rain began to hammer the cabin's roof, like nails being driven into a coffin. The lights flickered once, then died completely, leaving Amber in choking darkness. Candlelight danced wildly as she backed away from the journal, heart racing. The air was thick with moisture, as though the lake itself had crept inside. She could hear footsteps overhead, slow and deliberate. Though no stairs led to an upper floor, the mirror stood uncovered now, entirely exposed in the corner of the room. Its surface no longer reflected her image. It showed the cabin from another time, and in it, Jason stood staring directly at her. His body was soaked, eyes wide and glassy, lips blue as if drained of breath. Beside him stood the bride, Eliza, her decayed gown clinging to her waterlogged frame, her face twisted in a tragic grin. Amber screamed and turned away, only to find water pouring from the cabin walls, the wood buckling under pressure. Shadows rippled across the floor like black snakes slithering beneath her. The mirror pulsed, a heartbeat in glass, and with a sudden shatter, a pale, bloated hand burst through, fingers curling toward her. Amber stumbled backward, slipping on the wet floor, her scream swallowed by a low, guttural wail. The voice that followed wasn't Jason's, but Eliza's. Cold, echoing, dripping like it came from underwater. He promised forever. He lied. They all lie. The wind howled, carrying whispers from every corner of the room, all repeating the same phrasing. Join us. Furniture slid across the floor on its own, forming a barricade around Amber. She tried to run, but the front door wouldn't budge. It pulsed like breathing flesh. The fireplace roared to life, but its flames were blue and unnatural, casting twisted shadows that danced like mourners around her. Eliza stepped fully through the mirror, water pooling at her feet with every step. Amber tried to reason, to beg, but Eliza's eyes held no empathy, only centuries of sorrow and rage. He drowned me, she whispered, inches from Amber's face. So now I take what they love most. She reached out, and Amber's body seized with an unbearable cold. Her vision blurred as her skin paled, lungs heavy with invisible water. Through the mirror's cracked surface, Amber glimpsed Jason, trapped beneath the lake, face frozen in terror. Then everything went dark. The mirror slowly stitched itself closed behind Eliza, its surface rippling once more. Only one bride stood in the reflection now, and she was still smiling. The storm passed by dawn, leaving the forest silent and soaked. Mist clung low to the earth like ghostly hands reaching across the lake surface. The cabin stood quiet, still, as if nothing had ever disturbed its long slumber. A local ranger, doing a routine trail check, noticed something strange. 2 suitcases on the porch, untouched by rain. The door creaked open easily, revealing a dust-laden room devoid of life. No signs of struggle, no fresh footprints. Everything looked abandoned. Except for the mirror. It now gleamed brightly, wiped clean, its frame polished as if newly cared for. The ranger paused in front of it, staring, uncertain why it felt so wrong. In the reflection, he saw the room behind him. But something else, too. A bride. Pale, elegant, unmoving. She stood just over his shoulder, eyes wide, smile delicate and haunting. The ranger spun around, heart hammering. But no one was there. When he looked back at the mirror, the figure remained. His reflection vanished, replaced by a dark lake surface gently rippling under moonlight, even though the sun blazed overhead outside. A name etched itself slowly into the glass from the insiding Amber Caldwell. Beneath it, another name appeared. Fainter, Aldred Eliza Marrow. The ranger stumbled back, suddenly nauseous, and left without a word. Deep beneath Stillwater Lake, something shifted. The water shimmered unnaturally despite the calm above. Down in the lakebed, Jason's lifeless body floated silently among others. Faces half familiar, some too decayed to recognize. They drifted in slow circles, eyes open but unseeing, trapped in an endless embrace with the cold. In the center of them all, Amber's body rested in her bridal gown, hands folded neatly as if sleeping. Her eyes, though wide open, were no longer hers. A faint smile curled at her lips, mimicking Eliza's perfectly. Around them, the silt stirred with whispers, repeating softly, All love dies here. That night, the cabin lights flickered back on for the first time in decades. A candle lit itself in the window. From the edge of the forest, hikers claimed they saw a figure in white standing near the lake, her dress dragging across the water without sinking. She turned and vanished before anyone could reach her. The mirror, now hung above the fireplace, displayed new photographs. Jason and Amber smiling by the lake, caught in moments that had never happened. But in each photo, one figure remained constant, the drowned bride, standing silently in the background, forever watching. Stillwater Lake had claimed its newest love story,